Hello everyone, how are you? Today we're gonna make this 3D mushroom in Blender using Eevee. First, I'm gonna show you how to model a chunky mushroom. Then we're gonna make the materials and different outline options. Later, we're gonna make the face and the grass. And you could even animate this mushroom, but more about that at the end of the video. Okay, let's begin. First, let's make the stem. Select the default cube and scale it on the Z axis. And now scale on the X-axis. To make our model smoother, add a subdivision modifier and shade smooth. In edit mode, enable X-ray mode and I'll be modeling in front view. Select the top face, make sure the 4 top vertices are selected and scale down a bit. And now select the bottom face and scale it up a little. Add a loop cut right in the middle, enable proportional editing and scale. Let's scale a bit more to make it very chunky. Select the bottom face and scale it down a bit. And move it on the Z axis to make the model shorter. Now move the top face on the Z axis. Extrude along the Z axis and scale it down. Select these vertices and scale up to make a rounder shape. And back to the top face, use the Insert tool and move on the Z axis. Let's decrease the influence. And move all these faces on the Z axis to make the model a bit shorter. Let's scale these middle vertices. Let's take a look. It looks okay, but I want to touch up the shape a bit, so add a loop cut right here and scale. Increase the influence. And now scale these top vertices. Let's see. Increase the subdivision modifier to make it smoother. I feel like it could be a bit rounder on the sides, so add a loop cut along the Y-axis, which is this green line, and scale along the Y-axis. And now do the same but on the X-axis. Back to object mode, scale on the X-axis to make the stem a bit narrow, and make it shorter by scaling on the Z-axis. To add a new object on top of this one, let's select this top middle vertex, Shift S and cursor to selected. And now we can add a cube right here on the top. Subdivided, shade smooth, and scale up a bit. In edit mode, in face selection mode, select the bottom face and insert face. Extrude along the Z axis and scale down. Scale the top face down. Select all these faces and scale up to give this sort of triangular round shape. Let's scale a bit more. To make it chubbier, add a loop cut right in the middle and scale it until it looks pretty round. Select the top face and move up a bit and scale. Select this middle edge loop and scale up. Let's see how everything looks. Increase the subdivision modifier to make the cap smoother, and we could scale up the stem as well. Move the cap up and scale it up. You could leave the shape as it is and skip to the next chapter, but I'm gonna make some minor changes. Using the annotation tool, I'm gonna draw a shape to use as a reference. Let's select the bottom faces and scale a bit. And now scale this middle edge loop. Select all these faces and scale. And back to the bottom faces, let's scale them a bit more. And now we can delete the annotation. Now it's time to set up the camera, so select it, move the view to your liking, and press Ctrl-Alt-0 to align the camera to the view. Let's make some minor changes. Now we've modeled the base shape, we need to make the white dots on top of the cap. For that, let's add a sphere. Let's move it to the side, shape as smooth, and in edit mode, go to front view. Let's disable this and enable X-ray mode, so we can select all these faces and delete. Back to object mode, let's set the origin to the center. Scale on the Z axis, and let's be more efficient here and use the snapping tool. And now if we move this object, it will stick to the cap. Let's go to camera view mode to choose the placement of the dots. Let's scale it down a bit, and to duplicate this one you could use the Shift D or the Alt D command. The difference is that the first command will create a new object, meanwhile the second one will create a linked duplicate, which means it will take less memory. Later I did convert some of those linked duplicates into single user copies, so I could apply different materials to some of them. The snapping tool gives a bit of a struggle sometimes, but overall I think it makes things quicker. Remember to scale some of the dots to give some variety and distribute them a bit randomly so the mushroom looks more natural. And even though I won't show the back of the object in the final render, let's put some circles there as well. And we just finished modeling our mushroom, and now it's time for the lighting and materials. Go to camera view and let's set the lighting first. Change the default light to a sun and remember to enable scene lights and world. Change the strength and rotate the light until you like the placement of the shadows. I wanted the shadows on the bottom side. Choose the default material we have here, and let's just make the typical toon shader we've done in past videos. We need a diffuse BSDF, a shader to RGB, and a color ramp node. I am making an in-depth video about the toon shader to explain what each node does, so subscribe to the channel so you don't miss it. Move the color stops and add another one. Move it to the right, and now we have the highlights, the midtones, and the shadows. For the stem, choose the same material but make it a single user copy, so each object has its own material, and for this one I don't really want a highlight since I don't think it looks good. Okay, now let's choose the colors. I decided to make a green mushroom, so let's pick a dark green for the shadows, a lighter green for the fill, and an even lighter shade for the highlights. You'll notice that during the video my colors shift, because I tried different shades out, but these are my final colors. And now for the stem I went with two yellow colors, so pick a light yellow for the shadows and a lighter yellow for the fill. You could choose other colors, of course, and to make the colors a bit punchier, change the color management. I am not 100% happy with this shadow right here, and first I tried to move it with a texture coordinate and a mapping node, but it didn't work, so then I realized I could just set the cap's shadow mode to none, and now it's gone. For the circles material, let's choose the stem material and make it a single user. And since these duplicates are linked duplicates, once I choose the material for one circle, all the others will automatically have the same material. Let's go back to camera view, and now I want to change the material for this circle only. So I need to make it a single user object, since it is a linked copy. Turn this material into a single user as well, and now we can move the color stop a bit. Let's repeat. And I will use that material for this circle as well. And for this one too. And for this one, I want a different material so I can move the shadow a bit. For this one, I want a different material since this circle is in complete shadow. And I just kept doing this until I was happy with the placement of the shadows in each circle. I don't know if you noticed, but in the final render, the highlights are at the top. So to move them, I could have rotated the sun, but then all the shadows that took me a minute to place will change their spot. So first, I'm gonna undo this, move the highlight all the way to the right, and let's decrease the sun's strength. And to add the highlights back again, but this time at the top, we need a spotlight. Let's move it up and place it. Increase the strength, reduce the size of the spot, back to camera view, let's finish placing the spot. Now it's time to add the outline. First, let's create this dark outline around the entire mushroom. Add a new grease pencil object, disable use lights, and we're gonna use this default black material. Add a line art modifier and choose the only layer and the only material we have. Make a new collection and put both the stem and the cap in there, so we can create an outline for both meshes. Pick that collection, change the line thickness, change the edge type to silhouette, and disable intersections. Let's also add the circles that are on the edge of the cap to the collection. I'll move this one a bit, and here we have the first outline. I'm also gonna scale up this one. You could also have an outline between the cap and the stem, but I'll stick with this one. Now let's create an outline like this one. We need another line art modifier, create a new collection, and take all the remaining circles inside that collection. Don't move the circles that are already in the other collection. Pick the new collection and the only layer and the only material we have. And change the line thickness. For this one, I want a different effect, so disable everything but edge marks. Select a circle, go to Edit Mode, and in Edge Mode, press Alt to select an edge loop. Right-click and mark Freestyle Edge. And after you mark an edge loop, it will change its color in Edit Mode as you can see. Back to Object Mode and repeat with the other ones. If the outline is not visible yet, don't worry, we'll fix that in a minute. Even though the circle is in the other collection, it has its edge marked because it's a linked copy from this one. Now we need to make it into a single user copy, and in edit mode with the edge loop still selected, clear freestyle edge. We could create a new layer for this second outline to keep everything organized. And we can also make a new material to change its color. We already had this default material, so let's use it. Change the line type to line, and I'm gonna pick a green color to keep it monochromatic. Now we need to update the layer and the material. Let's rename the modifiers. And you can rotate or move some circles to show more or less outline or to fix some parts that might look odd. You could also mark the edges of these circles at the back, but remember that the line art modifier works according to the camera position, so unless you're planning on doing a turnaround, it's not really necessary. Now we need to add the green outline to the circles that are in the other collection. So duplicate this green outline, but change the source to Object and select one circle. Mark the edge loop in edit mode. We need to disable edge marks from the first line art modifier, so the outlines for the edge we marked don't overlap. Let's move it a bit. And by pressing double Shift, you could also slide a mark edge loop instead of moving the circle to move the outline a bit. And you should repeat the same process with these remaining circles. This one is already done, but let's do the other ones together. Select an edge loop and mark freestyle edge. Now let's duplicate the last line art modifier we have here and change the object to this sphere. Select this one, edit, I'm gonna rotate it and move it a bit. And repeat the process one last time. Duplicate the line art modifier, and you already know what to do in edit mode. As you can see, this outline here looks bad, so to fix it, go back to edit mode, select the edge loop that is next to the one we just marked, mark freestyle edge, and press double Shift to slide this edge loop closer to the other one. Another thing we could do is break the outline of some of the circles. To do it, go to edit mode, select some edges that are already marked, and press clear freestyle edge. And back to object mode, here it is. I'm also gonna rotate this circle a bit so the outline looks a bit different. And I'm gonna slide this edge loop a bit towards the center. And let's clear some edges too. Let's move and rotate this sphere a bit. And now I'm gonna move the cap a tiny bit to fix this material showing at the borders instead of the green outline. And if you are too much of a perfectionist, mark another edge loop and slide until the white disappears. We could clear this freestyle edge in some parts as well. And let's do the same with this remaining circle. And to give the final touch to the outline, I'm gonna add an effect. Make sure you are in render mode and add a blur effect. Let's change the value. And I think this effect adds a bit of fuzziness that makes the outline look less perfect, and I like that subtle effect. To make the face, make sure you are in frame 1 and add a new grease pencil object. Remember to disable use lights in every layer we add, and we're gonna use this black stroke material we already used for the outline. Let's go to draw mode and increase the strength and disable pressure if you're using a graphic tablet. Set this one to surface, and I'm gonna draw in front view. To draw the mouth, I'm gonna use the arc tool. Press M to flip the arc, maintain Shift press to create a perfectly symmetrical arc, release the mouse without clicking, and extrude by pressing E. Shift, release, and left click. Go to edit mode, switch to stroke mode, and take the mouse to the center and bring it forward if needed. Let's move it down and smooth in sculpt mode. For the eyes, we can use this default material, and we need to enable a stroke and fill. Let's draw in a new layer, and remember to be in frame 1 before adding a new layer. Pick the circle tool, remember we're drawing in front view, and change the offset. You might need to try different values out. If you want a perfect circle, press Shift. I won't, since I want an oval. In edit mode, move along the y-axis and smooth it a bit if you want. Add a mirror modifier and choose the layer where you drew the eyes in. Let's bring the eyes closer to each other and make sure they are close to the mesh. Make a new layer for the cheeks and make sure it's below the eyes layer. Add a new material, this time it's gonna be a fill material. We could sample this shadow color, but this is my final shade. Go to front view and make a circle. Maintain Shift pressed to create a perfectly symmetrical circle. Let's move it and add a second mirror modifier. Let's smooth the cheeks only, so lock the other layers. And now make a new layer, place it on top and draw the eyes highlights using a white stroke material. Let's switch to the Draw tool, go to Front View and draw 2 dots. Decrease the radius and draw 2 more dots. Lock the eyes layer so we can easily select the highlights only and move them forward a bit. To make the floor, we need a plane. Scale it up, move it down, go to edit mode and select this edge at the back. Extrude along the Z axis. Select this edge loop and bevel. Let's add a few segments. Back to object mode, choose the same green material we used for the cap. Let's move the plane up a bit more, For the grass, we need a new grease pencil object. I chose a black stroke color and a green fill color. As you can see, the 3D cursor is right here in the middle. This will be important in a few seconds. In draw mode, change the stroke placement to 3D cursor. I will be drawing in camera view mode, and let's change the radius a bit. Now, if I draw, you will see that the grass gets drawn in the same line as the 3D cursor. Let's undo it. So, to draw the grass ahead of the mushroom, we need to move the 3D cursor by holding Shift and right-click, or simply choose the tool in the toolbar. Now let's draw a blade of grass. And here I have draw strokes on back enabled, so my next stroke will be behind the first one. You can disable it if you like. Let's draw a few more. I'm gonna move the 3D cursor to draw some strokes behind the mushroom this time. Let's make the radius bigger. And we could disable this and draw this stroke ahead of the others. And here we have our grass. Let's change the color. And in a sculpt mode, smooth the strokes a bit. Now it's time to render our project. If you're happy with how everything looks, you could just render it as one image and that'll be all. I will render each object individually, so I can later have more control in the compositing stage, and because I want to maintain the mushroom with this lighting, but I want the background with different lighting. If you didn't save your project, do it now, since we are about to make some changes and I don't want you to mess up the project. First, to render the mushroom with a transparent background, enable transparent. Also enable set passes to render grease pencil correctly, and disable the plane and the grass in renders by pressing this camera icon. The cheeks look odd, so I need to move them forward a bit. And now everything seems correct. Save as. To keep the background transparent, save the image as a PNG with an alpha channel. To render the grass, keep the transparent background enabled and disable everything but the grass and the floor. We need the floor, but we need to turn it into a holdout. If we just hit the plane, the grease pencil would render with the strokes that are below the plane. That's why I turned it into a holdout instead. Now hit render and save. Let's open the project again, since we just made changes I don't want to keep. Now I'm gonna render the background with a different shadow because right now I don't like its angle. Disable the grass, the spotlight, the outline, the face and the circles. Now let's take this sun and rotate it until you like the way the shadows on the ground look. Since we rotated the light, now the color of the background has changed. To fix that, add a new material slot, pick the same material but make it a single user copy and remove the shadow color. In edit mode, in face mode, select all these faces that have a different color and assign the second material. And now to make the mushroom disappear while keeping its shadow, make a new transparent material and change the blend mode to Alpha Blend. And for the stem, pick the same material. Render, and here we have the shadow and the background. Save it, and we don't need an alpha channel for this one. If you want, you can save this project as a new one, since we've changed the sun's rotation. You could do the compositing in Blender, which is what I did in this tutorial. But this time I'm gonna use Photopea, which is a free online Photoshop alternative. Just go to photopea.com and import the images we rendered. Select using the rectangle select tool, Ctrl C, go to the background and Ctrl V, and do the same for the other image. And here we have our 3 layers. If they are not in the right order, you can rearrange them by pulling the layer up or down. Now we can save as a PNG or a JPEG. You might need to click this folder to see where the image was saved. Since this is an image editor, you can edit the image, from changing its brightness to changing the color of the whole image or of only one layer, which is the perk of rendering each object separately. And you could also animate this mushroom we made today. But that, my friends, is a subject for another video. If you'd like me to make a video about image editing for beginners, or if you'd like to see how I made this loop animation, let me know in the comments. As always, thanks for watching and see you in the next one. Bye!